All right. Welcome to the E-Project. I always love when I can start fresh when we record like that. And I have to tell you guys a fun tidbit. After doing this for a few weeks at a time, I've never watched these because I don't really love to see myself. And I tortured myself by watching a few sessions recently, and I noticed that I never look right in the camera because I'm always looking at my notes or something else. So I learned something new every time we do this, and I just want you to know that we're all in this together with the learning. But without further ado, I am thrilled to introduce you to, this is actually one of my best friends in the whole wide world. And she's like a family member, like a sister to me. Her name is Donna. She is the Executive Director of Branding and Marketing at Street Sense, which is an amazing firm here. It's actually located in downtown Bethesda, but they are a national, in fact, global company, I think. And they have done amazing work on probably 1 million projects that you are frequenting or using all the time. And Donna is just an absolute rock star when it comes to communicating, which is really what branding is all about. And I'm not going to fill this time anymore by talking. I'm going to hand it over to Donna and let her tell you about our topic today, which is GOT brand strategy. It's really a question. The one thing I do want to say, Donna, before I hand it over, I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but I did include the slides in our Week at a Glance email in case you want to follow along. Right. And just so you know, you'll have them, but of course I'll send them in the recap. And there's some amazing templates in there that Donna created for you to use afterwards. So Donna, before I let you do a little intro about yourself, do you feel comfortable presenting, and do you want to share your screen? Or
I am. I'm going to share my screen, and I actually have, let's see here. Okay. Oh, it seems like I'm the host now. Is that right?
I think I did make you the co-host.
Okay. It's asking me to set the sharing options, but not actually letting me share.
Let me see if I can make you a full host.
Okay.
Maybe take me off because I feel like maybe that I'm on.
Oh, I just fixed it, Jillian. Sorry.
You got it?
I just made her a host.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
okay.
You should be good to go.
Okay. Great. You're right. I am good to go. Thank you.
Yay.
All right, excellent. So I'm so excited to be here today. Sorry for all the technical fun stuff. We always get that. I'm not gonna share in full screen mode because sometimes that jams up my ability to see the chat screen, and I really wanna be able to have you guys chat if you want to. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'll solicit some feedback in a few places, but also if something comes up, just feel free to, or you can just raise your hand the old-fashioned way, and I can see all of you. So just getting started here, I wanted to start by sharing my personal brand with all of you, because all of you are perhaps aspiring entrepreneurs or already down the path of being entrepreneurs. And so most of you know that when you're an entrepreneur, one of the most important things is your own personal brand.
Sorry, was on the phone with Brady.
Can I just say if we are not muted, if you can
Justin.
please, Sisha.
Oh, okay.
Sisha, can you go ahead and mute
doing?
yourself, please? Jillian, can you help me with that?
Donna,
I made you the host.
It's good to see you, buddy. How was telework?
Yeah.
Was it a lot of work?
I think I can maybe mute.
Yeah. Could we try that?
My computer had to be fixed.
Sorry, everyone.
So I got a new one and I'm waiting.
Oh, okay. I think I got it. Can everybody hear now? Okay, great. So I wanted to talk a little bit quickly about myself and then get on to the fun stuff. But here I just had a little story about myself, and I wanted to let you all know that something about me that led me down this path is that I am a storyteller, and all my life I've loved telling stories and I've loved communicating. And I've loved learning about people and their stories. And so that's really part of how I got into the business of branding. And I actually have a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. That's sort of where my education took me. And for a long time, I was a writer and editor, and I got into marketing and branding through writing. I worked for some wonderful organizations, including the Smithsonian and the Maine Center for Blind and Visually Impaired early in my career. So I really got involved in thinking about causes and issues that I cared about. And then as I really built my toolkit of skills around marketing and branding and communicating, I eventually had an amazing opportunity to work for one of the largest advertising agencies in the world, Ogilvy and Mather. They're now just called Ogilvy. And I did what's called brand strategy as part of my work with them for major brands like Jaguar Cars and Perrier Water and Sears, which dates me a little. Sears is kind of on the way out, right? But I really started to hone my skills in thinking about what brands are and what they do for people and for companies. And so I've been doing that for my whole career as a consultant, and now I'm doing that with Street Sense, where I get to think about branding for everything from small restaurants in Washington, D.C. to big global brands like Logitech. And everything in between. And I've had the incredible privilege of working with Main Street and Jill and Sharon on thinking about branding as it relates to Main Street. It's been one of my favorite things that I've done in my recent history. I'm very proud of being a part of this. And I really believe in my heart and soul that the best thing that we can do for ourselves as a society is understand people and what they need, put them first, and include everybody in our thinking about brands and brand experiences. So that's a little bit about me. I'm gonna now have a fun exercise here for just a minute. And I would encourage you, if you choose to chat, you can chat or you can just think about it for a minute. But the first question I just wanna ask is, what are these things that you see on the screen? I'm assuming you see three things in the middle of the screen. So I'm curious to know if you have any thoughts about what the three things are that you're seeing here. So I'll just give you a second. If you have any thoughts, you can share.
Apple, Starbucks, and Nike.
That's right. That's awesome.
Logos.
Somebody said logos, right? I see. Yeah. Yeah. Each worth $1 million. $1 billion. I like that. So I'm seeing some of these brands, logos, most valuable logos in the world, worth $1 billion plus. These are all great answers, and none of them are wrong. They're all right. In fact, these are, at the highest level, these are pictures, right? They're just pictures, right? So that's at the very highest level, at the most abstract level in some ways. They're just pictures, but what they are logos that represent brands, and these are big brands, recognizable brands, valuable brands. So thank you, you guys nailed it. But one of the reasons why I put these up on the screen, in addition to the fact that I knew you would all recognize them and know that they're hugely valuable, is that I wanted you to think.
Excuse me, Donna?
About, yes?
We have a question about what's the difference between logos and brands.
Well, great question. That's exactly where I'm heading. So thanks for asking that. So because what we're seeing here are logos that represent brands. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, and I'm going to answer your question in a roundabout way, if that's okay with you, which is, tell me for a second, just look at the logo on the left, the apple, and just put a word up there that expresses what you think when you think apple, when you see that logo. And you can put anything you think.
Phones.
Phones, teaching company.
I think as a
technology,
teaching company.
playful, friendly, Phones. Amazing electronics, easy to use applications. Hi. Not even hi.
Or fancy tech.
Oh, yeah. Fancy tech is a good one, Sisha.
Tech, yep. Learning. That's great. A couple of different people put learning.
Food.
Somebody noted Starbucks is also there. So what I wanted to do by demonstrating this is to say that, you know, a logo represents a brand and has a lot of associations of a brand, but a brand is bigger than a logo. And a brand is also something that companies or entrepreneurs ultimately don't really own, because brands are really about consumer perceptions and consumer ideas about logos, about marketing messaging, about companies and products and services and that whole world that a brand is related to. We put in Soapberry, tablet apps. I see some other things. So one of the things that we like to do when we talk about brands is distinguish the difference between, and I think what we want to do today is talk about the difference between brands and branding or brand strategy. Because your brand is something that has to do with what consumers think and feel and know about you. And branding is that whole world of things that we do that support your brand and that help define your brand and that help create an understanding of what you represent, so that when you go out into the world through all these different things that we do that we call branding, it puts those ideas in people's heads, you know, and helps them really get and understand what you're all about, what your company's all about, what your product is all about, what your service is all about, what your philosophy is, what your mission is, what you care about most. All of those things are kind of packaged into that brand. And a logo is just one piece of a brand. You know, a logo is a physical representation, is a graphic representation of a brand, but a brand is so much more than that. And so that's one of the things that I thought would really be helpful to talk about today. It also helps find the brand, somebody said. And I think that's right. So if we go just for a minute to talk a little bit more in depth about what I mean by branding, I think it's helpful to understand what we call this brand bullseye. So we talk a lot at Street Sense and, you know, in the work that we do about creating your brand from the inside out. And what that means is understanding what at its core your brand means, and then being able to build a suite of things that help you to communicate that out to the world and to define yourself and your company to the world. So as you can see in this brand bullseye, in the center, in this yellow circle, we have what we call brand DNA, which is really the internal facing understanding that you might have about what your brand is. And the way that this bullseye is designed, it's the next layer outside of that core yellow circle that starts to be external, where you think, okay, what's the name of the company? What's the logo? What we were just talking about, right? What's the mission? What's the story? So what are these kind of core elements and that you share with the world that tell about your brand? And then there's another circle, that white circle, which is an even more sort of outward facing sort of aspect of branding. And this is sort of marketing and advertising. So this is where you take that core internal understanding that you have about what your brand represents, what it really is all about. Then you take your name, your logo, your mission, your story, and you use those things as building blocks to create advertising campaigns, marketing campaigns. And that's all of those things like websites and social media and brochures, and you know, you can kind of go on and all the different things that you use as you get into that outer sort of white circle. But what we really want to talk about today a little bit is understanding that inner yellow circle, so that when you are moving into those next phases, you're sort of ready and you really understand what messages you need to send to the world and what things you need to emphasize. And so, you know, sometimes we say, you know, practice safe brand strategy. And what that really means is get that core DNA, you know, and if you think about what DNA is all about, you know, nobody from the outside can see your DNA. It's only hidden within inside you. And yet it's absolutely what helps define so many things about who you are, and how you present yourself to the world. And so I'm seeing that question about the bullseye and a follow-up email, and the answer is absolutely. You can have all of this in a follow-up email, and we will share it all. And if you have, you know, any follow-up questions, I'd also say I'm always happy for you all to reach out and ask me anything. So, because I know we only have an hour. If anybody has any more questions about this brand Bullseye, I'm happy to answer any of them if you want to throw them up in the chat. Again, you know, we can go back to this, we can talk about it again, but I do want to sort of move through all this so we cover everything, because there's a lot to talk about.
Donna, I'm going to interject for one quick second. I did actually have a request right before this, that maybe we can lighten up the background even though it looks super cool. And that way when people download it, it doesn't take a lot of their ink, and they can actually use this as a worksheet that they can work on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great worksheet, and absolutely we can create these. It's very easy to take away the black background and make it into a true worksheet. So happy to do that.
But it looks beautiful. And I'm sure you see this quick question about an example of brand DNA.
So we're going to talk more about that. Is that okay? Can we go more deeply into that? Because that's exactly what we're doing. And as far as how best to create this with a professional or with friends, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. I think that when you're an entrepreneur in the beginning, you should start with yourself and with your friends and with a core group that help you to go through this process. And then as you sort of launch your idea, your company, your product, whatever it is, and I'm really curious to know some more about some of what you all are doing, you may need to hire somebody to help you through this process. But you know, it sort of depends on what scale you're launching at, because a lot of times some of the greatest brands and greatest companies start, you know, really small and start with friends and family, and you know, you get your core group of folks who you test ideas with, and you say, this is what I'm thinking, and you go back and forth. And there's also a tremendous amount of resources on the internet, and I cannot tell you enough that if you search for brand strategy, if you search for brand positioning, if you search for examples, you'll be amazed at how many great and helpful tools there are out there to use. So I think the first step is working with your people and getting your idea and getting your direction set, and then moving to that next stage when you're ready. But I'm going to move on here to this next slide. And so just as I promised, we're going to dive a little more into what that DNA really means, right? Because what is that DNA? How do you define it? And it really begins, again, with these pretty sort of, they're simple questions, but they can be more difficult than you might think. So some of the things that go into defining what your sort of brand's DNA is question these sort of 4 core questions. So what is your category? And that's just a way of saying, what do you do? What do you offer? What's your product? What's your service? And again, it may seem like a simple question at first, but for many people, this is actually a complex question. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. Another question, who are your customers? You know, who are you doing this for if it's a service? And again, this is one of these questions that the more you sort of think about it and delve into it, the more useful answering that question can be, because really defining a specific set of customers is really helpful in terms of answering that next question. And this is the question I think that more than anything else, when you think about brand strategy, this third question here, what's your difference? Why are you special? This is the question that's at the heart of brand strategy, and that I advise anybody who's launching a brand or a business to really spend time understanding. And that, in fact, is really kind of what I'm hoping to provide you with some tools to do today. You know, what makes you different? Differentiation is actually the term that we use in brand strategy. And it's very specific to this idea of refining and understanding your offering and your unique place in the category in which you're playing. That last point is your proof, which is sort of why should I believe you? And that last piece is really a kind of important step that helps you, especially as you get into marketing, which says, you know, once you really defined your difference, what can you say that proves to people that you really are different in that way? And proof points, as we sometimes refer to them, can be functional. They can also be reputational, meaning you might have won an award, or you might have 500 amazing reviews on the internet, or you know, you might have been recognized as being the first or the best at something. It could be that you're that your product has a patented process. That could be a good example. So proof points just help support that point of difference and make people understand why you really are different. And that's a process that I think is easier to go through, obviously, once you've answered these first three questions. So any comments, questions about this? Or we keep going? Okay. So I wanted to start with an exercise that really uses us an example. And I want to use one of the examples that we've already sort of seen here for brands, which is Starbucks. Because I know that you all know Starbucks. And I think that, you know, the bigger the offering of a brand, the harder it can be in some ways to really get your mind wrapped around these questions. So Starbucks has a little bit of a narrower focus than a company at this point like Apple or even like Nike. It still isn't as narrow as some companies, but it is a little bit narrow, so it's a little bit easier for us to wrap our minds around it. So beginning with this idea of category and customers and difference, I want to talk for a minute about how by looking at your competition or looking at others in your category, you can help refine your understanding of your customers and also your difference. So who can tell me somebody else? Well, let me just start with this. What's the category, would you say, that Starbucks is in? If you had to say, what do they do? Anybody wants to just throw it in the chat.
Doing the Starbucks is making the coffee, like having customers do like coffee or community place for the beverages, and that's about it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Yeah, I see coffee, community place and beverages, gourmet social experience. So those are three really interesting answers: coffee and Wi-Fi. Very good. So right away, you see that what's interesting about this process is that the category is already something that's kind of interesting and a little bit difficult to define. Like, they do offer coffee, but they also offer cafes, and they also do offer Wi-Fi, and they do offer a social experience. So right away, trying to understand the category that you're in can be a little bit trickier than you might think. But let's just start from that basic first answer that David put in there, which was coffee. Oh, making friends. I liked it. Somebody else said making friends. I like that too. They're in the category of making friends. And international, somebody mentioned, which is true as well. So
I'm going to interject for 1 second just before we get too far. I just want to make sure that you guys, when you're not asking a question, if you could put yourself back on mute, just so we make sure that as we move on, we can hear Donna saying. Thanks. Sorry about that, Donna.
Oh, no worries. Okay, great. So I'm going to sort of go through this next stage for a second, and then we're going to return to this a little bit. So it'll just be sort of an interesting interim step here. What you see here is what we call a brand positioning map. And brand positioning maps are a tool that we oftentimes use to help us really understand what our position is according to our, in relationship to our competition. And it helps us to get at a closer understanding of what our difference is, and oftentimes who our customers are and what our category is. So if you look at this map for a second, you'll see I put another logo up here, which is Dunkin' Donuts. So right away, when you start to look at a brand in relationship to another brand that is sort of in the same category, at least seems to be in the same category, you start to think about it a little bit differently. And brand positioning maps you can create very complex brand positioning maps that have multiple different aspects. This is just an example of one. And so the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, well, what am I mapping? And so by looking at these two brands side by side, Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks Coffee, when I started to think about those two brands together, they're both in the coffee business, but what are some of the things about them that aren't the same? Because clearly, we probably agree, Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks Coffee are different from each other, but why? How are they different? So looking at this map for a second and just looking at these points, you could compare a lot of different things. But, just out of curiosity, if you were, and I don't know if any of you have played around with the annotation tool on Zoom or are familiar with it, but if you are and you're game, if you go up to the top of your screen, you can see you have a little pen where it says annotate. Can all of you see that?
I don't know if everyone has that, Donna, or
you can't see it.
If it might be different versions of Zoom.
Oh, maybe it will. Well, it's okay. You don't have to use the annotation button if you don't want. You can also just, somebody got it. I see somebody did it. So somebody
put, so cool.
I know, right? Zoom lets you do some really fun things. So right away, somebody put a mark up here at expensive and high quality. And I am guessing and assuming that mark is meant to represent where Starbucks goes. Am I right? Whoever put that up there? Yes? See, somebody else put a mark. Yes, Starbucks equals higher quality and more expensive. And Dunkin' is convenient. And I think that's meant to say affordable, right?
Yeah.
So, right, you're starting to put Starbucks. I see everybody. Oh, look how fun. Everybody's having fun with the annotation. I love it. So what's cool about this is that you can start to see, the simplicity in a way of creating this when you have two brands. But then another really interesting piece of the process is if you add more brands, how you might move different brands in the quadrants. And let me just say an example of this. Oh, I see somebody said, both are convenient. Starbucks is just more expensive. Okay, so thank you for saying that because you are totally on my wavelength. Thank you for saying that. Because if you added, I don't know how many of you are familiar with, but I think you've probably been to some place like this. At least some of you have been to a very fancy coffee place like La Colombe or Phil's, where they pour the coffee over and you wait and wait and wait for the pour over to go through the filter before you pick up your fancy coffee. So if you put another brand in here like that very fancy coffee place, then I think, to Daniel's point, you might start to think, wow, okay, if I were to plot them all on this graph, I might actually put Starbucks a little closer to that middle ground, you know, sort of between, you know, that it might be like it's a little more convenient than those places. So those places, you might sort of move them more over into this quadrant up here, right? And then you might move Starbucks a little bit closer to over here, because on the scale of convenience, Starbucks is more convenience than the place where you wait for 4 minutes for your coffee to pour through a filter. And the idea of the pour over, right, is that it's higher quality for the coffee, right? And that's why you stand there and wait for 4 minutes, because you think you're getting like something super high quality and special, and you pay more for it. So, you know, again, like, does that go, some of those places go way, way up here in the top, and Starbucks maybe goes a little more at that middle ground. So the more, but you know, then you could also throw in a brand like McDonald's. So what if you threw in McDonald's, which is a different kind of offering, but if you were focusing on coffee, then you can start to think about how McDonald's might even be further down in that very, yeah, somebody just marked it, right? On that very low quadrant of like, it's even more convenient and even cheaper, more affordable, right? So thank you, because I see all of you are putting some really great comments in the chat. And I do think that you've made a very good point too, which is, you know, that maybe Dunkin' Donuts is less of a place to stay and Starbucks is more of a place to stay. And that could be another kind of way of adding to your brand mapping, or thinking about your brand mapping a little bit differently too, because, you know, the experience that you have. So it's not only the quality of the coffee, but also the experience that you have when you're there, you know, and how that makes a difference in what you choose. So that's another element. And that gets back to some of the things you all were saying before about it's got Wi-Fi and it's where you make friends and it's social and all these different other aspects. So these brand maps can, and you can, someone put in Coca-Cola. But you know, these brand maps, if you go online and you search for brand positioning map, you will find a lot of examples of this, and you'll find everybody has their different way of plotting them. Everybody has different maps that they create and draws, you know, puts people in different places, has different axes, or sometimes you can do what's called a Venn diagram, which allows you to put more elements into place. It can get complicated. I'm not going to go into that here because we don't really have time to go deep into that. Yes, somebody just said there are many maps. Yes, there are many maps, and some of them are more complicated. And again, to your point, and I'm happy to do this after our session with Sharon, I can send examples and links that will help you find some great different types of mapping.
Oh, that would be awesome. And then I'll include that in the follow-up that I send to you, everyone.
Yeah, it's really a lot of fun. I mean, and part of what's fun is deciding what you want to map. And the point that I think that I really want to make, a meeting about the position. Okay.
Yeah, that, Jonathan, this is just an informational session. Donna's not hiring. We're just here to just share information about how we can understand what branding really is. Thank you for asking. I do see.
How do you choose the map you use?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an excellent question. And what I would say is that it depends on what you're trying to discover about your brand. And so in a way, what I did was I focused in this map on the coffee itself. Like I really tried to sort of narrow in on understanding the coffee offering and where Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts falls on that coffee offering. So I was really kind of trying to narrow it down to be clear that, you know what, one of the things that's important about Starbucks to be different is that it needs to play in this higher quality area, but then also when you start to add these other brands, it needs to have some level of convenience. And that's sort of where I wanted to go to this next slide to go back to, I'm going to
Oh,
clear
how do
up all
we, yeah, I was just going to ask how we do that.
I think I'm going to, I think everybody has to go and clear their annotations. If anybody who
cleared mine.
annotated can clear. Don't think I have the ability to clear, but anybody who annotated, if you don't, it's no big deal if it stays there, but if you have the opportunity to clear your drawing, those of you who drew, that would be great. Let me just see if I can, oh wait, I might be able to clear
Yeah,
everything.
as the host,
I
you
think
might
I
be
can
able
do
to.
it.
Great,
I just
awesome.
did it.
All right, no more annotating.
It's fun to annotate though.
It was really fun though.
So I wanted to go back because that's the question that you were asking about what map that you use. And one of the things that I think it's important to think about is, you know, in terms of if we're just talking about that question of mapping is you might map and then it might give you information and then you might want to go back and look at these questions again and then ask yourself, well, did that give me valuable information? And I think the answer is it did, you know, because I think that there's some things that we understand about Starbucks through that exercise that helped us to define a little bit more about what makes us different. We offer high quality coffee, but we do it in a way that offers convenience. But there might be some things that we didn't answer, like that whole piece about the social and the experiential. And so we might want to go back and choose a map that allows us to add a third or even a fourth piece to the puzzle. And that's where you get into Venn diagramming, which is a little bit more complicated, but can also be really helpful. And again, I'll share some of those examples. But, you know, if you were to start to think a little bit about that idea of the category and the customers, even after having done that exercise, one of the questions is, do you want to define the category for Starbucks as being high quality coffee? Maybe you just want to say, you know what, for Starbucks, if I'm Starbucks, I don't want to define myself as just offering coffee. I want to say my category is high quality coffee. You know, and then all of a sudden you have a better understanding of the area in which you're playing. And then maybe you only want to map yourself against competitors who are offering high quality coffee. And you say to yourself, you know, we're really not competing with Dunkin' Donuts. We're really competing with people who are offering barista made coffee. This again is where you start to get into thinking about those proof points too, right? We offer freshly roasted beans. We offer a huge variety of coffee beverages. So you can start to think about some of those things that support that point of difference, but you might decide the category is high quality coffee. Furthermore, if you do another mapping exercise, you might say it's not even only high quality coffee, but it's a high quality coffee experience. So then you're getting into this question about, you know, part of the importance is defining your category, not only by the coffee itself, but the experience that you have when you interact in that space with that brand. It's more than just getting the coffee, it's having an experience around getting the coffee. Does that make sense? Just sort of like thinking about your category and how to further define your category.
You know,
I think somebody said, so you can think about your idea or business and really be clear about what you do and if you communicate well to your audience. And that's right. I think that's, you know, and somebody said, I heard that Starbucks' goal was to become a third place, not home or work, but something else. And that's exactly right. That is true. That is part of their mission. And that was part of their founding story. So again, we were just having this conversation about they wanted to offer high quality coffee, a high quality coffee experience, right? And it brings together all of those elements. So this is that process that you go through as you start to answer these questions. To see the Starbucks coffee. So, you know, I think that another piece that's really important as you go through this process is understanding the notion that, you know, you can't define your difference without clearly defining your category. You can't define your customers without clearly defining your category. And you can't sort of establish what your proof points are until you establish your category. So it's like sort of job one to get your category right. And I think when you go through those brand strategy exercises and when you go through those mapping exercises and you finalize what your category is, you're also refining who your customer is, because your customer isn't somebody who just wants to get a mediocre cup of coffee to grab on the road. All they want is this hit of caffeine and they don't really care. What they want is great coffee, great tasting coffee, high quality coffee, and that experiential element. And so if that's your core customer, that's how that relates to your core category. Important to define your category. Yeah, and I think somebody said, John says, they're aiming to create their own category. And I think that's a really excellent point. And thank you for saying that. I think, you know, some of you, I'm imagining, because you're entrepreneurs, that's part of what you're trying to do too. And so what I wanted to ask some of you just to do, if you wouldn't mind sharing, is to share a little bit about what you aspire to do. What is your kind of, you know, goal for your business or your vision? Maybe you just have an idea and you haven't really gotten any farther than that, but any of you who would be willing or able to kind of share a little bit about what you're aspiring to do from a branding perspective, I would love to know, and maybe we can talk a little bit about this process.
Donna, while we're waiting for some suggestions, I do see a question. Do you ever let your proof points help define your category?
Well, in a way, yes. I think that's a fair point in that I'll give you like an example of something that would be a good, you know, perhaps a way to think about that. So how many of you know Trident gum? Trident gum, you guys all familiar with Trident gum, right? So if you know the history of Trident gum, you know that they have they basically, several years back, they patented a process for making sugar-free gum. And Trident comes from 3 enzymes that they use, that they combine. And this is this patented process for making sugar-free gum. And they were the first sugar-free gum that patented a process for making sugar-free gum. So by creating that patented process for sugar-free gum, they in effect created this category that didn't really exist before, which was, you know, which was this sugar-free gum category. In a way, there wasn't a category for sugar-free gum. There was gum, and some of that gum had sugar-free or not sugar-free, but Trident kind of created a category around specifically sugar-free gum. So I think that's the answer to that question, is that if you have something that you, that's a product or a process that you've developed, your proof points will point the way towards refining what your category is. So on one level, Trident had gum as their category from the very beginning, but because they were able to patent a process that became a very strong proof point for them, they were able to refine their category and sort of, in a way, stand on a category of its own. So does that help answer that question? That make sense?
Donna, I don't know if you
Okay.
saw, this one went up. It says, I have an idea. I want to make a business where we do support groups or psychoeducational groups for all kinds of topics and people.
That's a great idea. Is it a process that would be connected to Main Street, or would it be something outside of Main Street?
I would love if it was connected to Main Street. Yeah, it's sort of just an idea at this point, but yes, anything. I would love to do anything with Main Street that I can. I love Main Street. So yeah. But there's lots of people with great ideas on this call, so I don't know if mine is just an idea that I haven't. My passion is support groups and group work. So that's what I did my graduate training in, and I just can't get enough of groups. I love group work, and I love, and I find it's hard to find really good groups to join, really quality groups. So yeah, so anyway, that's my thing. But there's lots of people on this call that have lots of great ideas. So I don't know that I want you to focus on me because I'm an old woman. I'm like 52. There's so many young people on this call, like Mara and her business, and we have David wants to be he wants to be a Spanish tutor. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So but yeah, that's my idea. It's really just an idea. Because I know that somebody did it in Washington, D.C., but I think they went out of business. So I've been trying to think about how I could sort of do it better or figure out a way. So yeah, maybe I'll contact you offline and ask you some advice.
You should. But that's a great example. So just at the highest level, you know, one of the things that I would just encourage you to ask yourself is, are you developing a service? Are you developing a product? Are you developing a service and a product? You know, those are some of the questions that I would immediately want to ask you in terms of thinking through about that idea, because that's some of the basic category questions that I would want to start asking you. Does that make sense?
If I could just ask you real quick, a service, I would think of it as a service because I think of products as something you can hold and touch.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just tell me the difference between service and product?
Well, I guess what I would say to you is that if it's a service, it's something that you are providing, whereas a product could be, in this circumstance, a way for people to provide that. And a tool that people could use to access that. So if you developed an online platform, you know, that you used that provided an amazing opportunity for people to join groups and get psychotherapy or whatever it was that they were getting online, that would all be sort of like a product. Like, I've developed this amazing software platform, it's online and it connects people with therapists, and so that'd be like a product. Versus, come here and get my group, you know, sort of basically get this service from me, you know, which would be more like, you know, that would sort of be the distinction. So as far as that idea goes, that's just an example of where you'd want to start understanding what is it that you are trying to build at its most fundamental level. But I see so many people
Donna, before let me interject. Are there more slides we need to see, or should we go back?
There's just one more slide,
okay.
But I really wanted to open up the conversation a little bit before we go to this next slide, because really the slide is partly a takeaway and homework for everybody. So I more wanted to just kind of open up this dialogue for people to understand, to sort of just understand what questions you're asking yourself. And I see somebody ask the question about Main Street and what category Main Street is in. And in fact, Street Sense worked a little bit with Main Street on that very question about what is Main Street. And, you know, it is in a category by itself. I really truly believe that Main Street stands in a category by itself. You know, it is at once a residence and a sort of social movement and a third place. We used that term before. So I believe that Main Street stands in a category currently by itself. And it's one of the things that makes Main Street such an incredibly differentiated offering. And so if you have an idea that stands in a category by itself, you right away are understanding, this is what makes me special. I'm not like anything else. I'm in my own category. Does that make sense?
Yes, I love that, Donna. Thank you.
Of course.
I also think what happens when you're associated with the category, and Donna, you please correct me if you're wrong, but you get labeled of being in that category.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. So I think that there are lots of people out there who offer programming for different categories of people. One, they offer programming for people with disabilities, or they offer programming for this type of person or this type. And that's really the difference with Main Street. Is we are offering an opportunity for everyone to join and belong. And that's why our programming is so robust and so diverse, because it's not just for one category of person. So if you like drama, come on in. If you want to be in the talent show, right? If you like sports or arts and crafts or learning about politics, which is coming, by the way, Black Lives Matter, things like that, they're all coming. But if you just want to, you know, work out and do yoga with Daniel, that's awesome too. You can do that. If you need supports, you know, therapeutic, and we have that too. So I think that hopefully we're really good at what we do. And I think our feedback so far is that we're, and when we're not, or when we can do better, we will. But it's really providing a place for all people to feel that they have a home, and a home away from home, and a place to belong. So, and Street Sense has been so helpful with us. Donna, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. This is such an incredible experience and opportunity. And I think that, you know, this is always a tension in brand strategy, is that you never want to paint yourself into a corner, to your point, Jillian. You don't ever want to you don't want to reduce what you are and who you are and what you're offering. You want to throw the net wide and say, we do so much and we encompass so much. And that is an important process and important to communicate. And yet at the same time, the process of brand strategy asks you in a way to narrow and focus. And so, you know, the challenge sometimes is, that's sort of what I was saying before about, it's harder than it seems. Because you say, oh, what do you do? Who do you do it for? What makes you different? You know, why should I believe you? When you first look at those questions, they seem so simple, but it's hard. And it's harder if you're doing more. If you're Trident Gum, you have a pretty narrow focus, right? But if you're Apple, if you're Main Street, if you're Street Sense, because we struggle with this all the time, it's complicated because there's a lot that we do, but we also do need to communicate what makes us unique and what makes us special and what we're the very best at. And so that's a challenge. And so that's why you use brand strategy. That's why you use those maps that I share with all of you, and I will share more. And it's why we encourage this notion of developing a brand positioning statement, which is what I was saying before. I want to just sort of leave this with you all, because it's an exercise that's like a formula. And I always tell people that work with me, it's a formula. Like, I'm not kidding. It's a formula. It's not a creative exercise at this stage. We're doing this for internal purposes. This is not to share with the world. A positioning statement is not your about us statement. It's not your elevator pitch. I mean, there's so many things we did not talk about today because they don't go in that internal bucket. You know, what's your tagline? What's your, you know, all of those things. We didn't talk about any of that, because the idea is that you get all this figured out first and then you go super creative, you know? So you say, oh, you know, we're the ultimate driving machine, or whatever it is that you want to say about your company. And all of that is important, really, really, really important too. And it's part of marketing and all of that. But, you know, for who are we doing this? What is it that we're offering? You know, we are, you know, whatever it is, the leading inclusivity third place in the universe because we have this and we have this, you know? So that's the sort of thinking that helps you. And again, it is internal. It is for you to get your, I sometimes say, you know, it's your DNA. It's also like your true north. It's like, oh, who are we doing this for again? Who's our core audience? It doesn't mean that we're saying that we couldn't do it for absolutely everybody, but it does help say, you know, gosh, when we think about developing a message, we need to remember these are really the people that are going to care most about this message and that are going to be the most loyal to us and most likely to gravitate towards us. So, you know, I think when you work really hard, and again, you can look at thousands of examples like this on the internet. You can see, you can search brand positioning statements, and you can see it's an exercise people do in marketing school or branding, you know, all the time. And you can practice it with the brands we're talking about. You can practice it with Starbucks. You can practice it with Apple. You can practice it with Trident Gum or Nike. I do this. I still do it. I mean, I have this weird reflexive part of me that still goes, well, it's the brand positioning for X or what. I wonder what the brand positioning is. I wonder what their brand, how you would express their brand positioning. And it's a great exercise to go through. And so, you know, I really meant this to be sort of like a worksheet for you all as you start to think about your ideas and your businesses or your businesses to be. Or maybe it's just you. Maybe it's you and your own service that you're offering to the world. If you're a Spanish tutor, well, just go ahead. I mean, you know, it could be as simple as people who want to speak Spanish. But maybe there's more to it than who your audience is. Maybe there's more nuance, and you can go through this exercise to help figure that out. So I know I see we're really short on time, and I want to be true to time. Looking at Sharon there, you know. So we have like just a couple more minutes. Are there other questions? Are there other comments?
Donna, while we're doing that, just so we have one last chance to kind of be together virtually, do you mind unsharing your screen, and then we can
Of course.
we can have that last bit of connection together.
Okay.
That was so fabulous, and I just want to say that I know we weren't able to have an opportunity to use everyone's examples, but hopefully these worksheets will really allow you to go back and really take the time to think about what you heard today and review the video if you need it again, and really use these exercises to help you get a little more specific in your own minds about what you want to share with the world and who you are. Does anyone have any last questions or comments for Donna before we oh, you know what, actually, I'm so sorry. I almost forgot that we need to do our poll. So because we are running late on time and I want to be respectful, if anyone has follow-up questions, email me and I will make sure Donna gets them.
Absolutely.
And so let me real quick, except that I might need to take, Jillian, do you have the ability to run the poll now that I gave away my hosting ability?
Yeah, I'm going to do the big one, Cher.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, guys, here we go. And Donna, you are so unbelievable. I love how it works. I do. And I know I said this already to everybody, but while you're filling out the poll, Donna and her team have helped us so much with Main Street. Really just think about who we are and what we do and who we serve, all of you. And I love thinking and being creative, and you are the reason why we are where we are. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. This was really, really great. And I love seeing all your faces, and I'm, again, really happy to answer any questions you have or follow up in any way.
Awesome. Thank you.
You are the best. I'm going to give us just another second while we're filling this poll out and give you guys a super quick update on our upcoming events. We have tomorrow Chess Club at 11. We have travel with Bridget at 4:30. And then this is a full day. We've got sports at 6:15. That's all tomorrow on Wednesday. Thursday, we've got our culture series, which is going to be really cool, behind the scenes with a working actor, which would be super cool. And then, of course, Bake with Sharon, and we're going to be making peach cobbler, which I know is one of Donna's favorites, actually. Friday, we've got our space of belonging with at 3 p.m. yoga and mindfulness with Daniel, who's here with us today at 4 p.m. And then bingo on Sunday. So it is a full and robust week at Main Street. So that is what's upcoming. And if you have not had an opportunity to register for our ribbon cutting, please feel free to do so. When you go to our website, the banner comes right up in front and you can click and register. Tell 5 friends, tell them all to come and join us. We've got, I think, over 700 people registered right now. Jennifer, the sports club is on the website under upcoming events, but I can send you the link as well so you have it, absolutely. But yeah, please share and spread the word about this ribbon cutting. We have so much to say, and it's a wonderful celebration to really celebrate what we've accomplished together.
I've just registered already, Sharon. Just want to let you know.
Awesome, you rock.
Anyone register? Raise your hand.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up if you're registered, guys.
Hi.
Did you
Love
share
it.
But the question is, did you share it with your friends?
Exactly, with 5 friends, minimum 5 friends.
Registered
Wait,
now.
Jonathan, have you registered? Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you,
All
Donna.
right. Thank you,
Thanks, you
Donna. You're the
guys.
best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.